All right, so this is going to be Biden's State of the Union address. Now, while we are watching that, we are going to be looking at fact checks done by Donald Trump himself on Truth Social. So I'll bring those up periodically to kind of hash out the two parties to see where this speech is actually going to go. But let's go ahead and get into the video and the live stream.
Okay, I think we're set up. To fund the government, although
so this is going to start in 4 minutes.
There should be a bill going to the president where the government will be funded again
4 minutes
for
until
a short term.
He actually starts giving his speech.
There's so much tension, and this is a night where they kind of can go back to the old standards for at least a night. You do have all branches of government. This is always what's so fascinating about this and why there's a lot of security tonight. You have members from all branches of U.S. government in one place and in one room. That never happens other than tonight and an inauguration. So this is really, a part of American history. It's something that whatever the president says, there always is a line that people are going to remember, years from now from their State of the Union address. And, President Biden knows that. He has, of course, written, this is his fourth now, but he knows that this moment is particularly crucial, not only for the campaign, but for the times Americans are in. He's also, we haven't talked about this tonight, but he is going to touch on the economy.
3 minutes away from him.
A lot of voters are saying, I can't afford bread, I can't afford milk, everything's going up, there's shrinkflation. He's going to address that too tonight. So we'll see if that does strike a tone and maybe turn the tide of how Americans are feeling and their perception
you guys who
of
just
the economy. But again, it's
2 minutes away from coming out and giving a speech.
The Supreme Court justices come in now. There's John Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts. He has attended.
If you could test the chat for me, I'd appreciate it.
It's been a mixed bag as far as who comes besides him. I do see Sonia Sotomayor, who has not been in attendance in recent years. Elena Kagan there. Of course, we see Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh.
We don't see Clarence Thomas unless he is
Clarence Thomas
behind.
Doesn't come. Justice Alito doesn't come anymore. But we did see Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson there as well. This is a moment where they want to show that they are
2 minutes away from him coming out.
Really apolitical, but taking part in this ceremonial endeavor, Rhonda.
That's right, and this is also Supreme Court that is also very aware of their own public perception. They have had so many high-profile cases that we've been talking about just in the last few weeks. So this, again, is a part of that dynamic showing us what type of politics we're now experiencing. They have just decided this week to keep the opponent of President
Again, I'm going to be
Biden
pulling
on the ballot
up
in
Donald
Colorado.
Trump's
They
fact-checking
on
Truth Social
related
as
to
he
the
starts
election.
making
So,
his tweets or whatever they call
their
them
presence
on Truth
reminds
Social
you
to
of
see
how
what he has to say to counterbalance
now is
Biden's
engaged
opinion,
somehow
and we can kind of
in
get
the next election.
a balanced opinion,
James,
hopefully.
we've also seen
or at least the two
retired
different opinions.
justices
We'll know
show
both
up.
sides.
Yeah, there's Anthony Kennedy right in the shot behind Justice Jackson. Justice Kavanaugh holds his seat. Kavanaugh actually clerked for him. So did Gorsuch. And that's their prerogative. There are also former members there. George Santos is actually in the House, even though he was expelled
tweet from Donald Trump
from
says
Congress
that
a few months ago.
Good. Last tweet from Donald Trump says that the president is very substantially late, not a good start, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure he had a very important things to do, but he's just now getting into the car. They will have to drive very, very quickly. You just don't want to be late to the State of the Union. They will need Mario Andretti to be at the wheel of the limbo. So as you can see, Trump's already trolling him. So, and apparently Biden's late, but yeah, this was expected to start at 4 o'clock. It's just now 4 o'clock. So we will see what happens if they're going to delay this or whatever they're going to do. Throw some ads in there or something.
Our civic culture coming together, and it is meaningful to project that to the world amid everything else this is going on. Sweden joined NATO today, and you'll hear the president give a shout out to the prime minister of Sweden, and so this is it's a reflection of that, of the U.S. projection to the world.
JM?
Yeah, Libby, I think it's all.
Appreciate you guys showing up. If you could let me know if the chat is working, that would be really helpful. If you just post something in the chat.
who, by the way, we were talking a moment ago about those members who stake out seats on the aisle, and Jackson Lee is one of those who, for decades, there are moments of her throughout all these State of the Unions getting words in with presidents, so that's an interesting scene there. But I think it's important to note here, Libby, as well, that one of the reasons we're getting all of these shots is because the rules for cameras in the chamber are different when there's a joint session of Congress like this. Normally, the House of Representatives controls the feed, and that's sort of the static thing that our viewers might be used to seeing on a C-SPAN, for example. But when there's a joint session of Congress, we get all these different camera views in, and it's really just a great sense of who's talking to whom, especially for House watchers, because you can kind of tell sometimes.
So there was another tweet from Trump just 45 seconds ago. He said that there is nothing he can say tonight that can absolve him from letting 15 million people into our country illegally. He'll probably blame me, but I had the safest border in the history of the country, so that won't go very far.
And that'll be interesting to see what the White House does here, because they've put so much weight on this address as sort of this launching pad moment for Biden and for the Biden re-election campaign.
He's actively tweeting.
What do they do to kind of translate
And
this
at least
if
he's
the
not
eyeballs are not there, for example, tonight, Libby?
Hey,
what do they
Quarter,
do to
thank you for showing up,
translate that
and thank you for
into
letting me
kind
know the
of
chat
moments
works.
for them?
I really appreciate that.
That's something that we'll
So
be watching
I'm
kind of
going back and
after
forth
the
between
speech is finished
Trump's
here.
tweets that he's doing. He's live tweeting during his speech. So I'm going to let you guys know what a balanced opinion is of both sides. Biden right now is running late. This was supposed to start 3 minutes ago. He's still not there yet. He has not showed up yet.
In the building. We know he will come around the corner in a few moments. You can see there a little bit of waits to get a glimpse of the president as he goes into the House chamber on this really historic night. Rhonda, it's a night that is part of our annual tradition now.
Yeah, you can see all the people here are just waiting for Biden to show up. He's just not here yet.
And the Biden team is really looking at this as a way to get eyeballs, get focus, and really try to launch into the next 8 months of the campaign season, even as they do the normal presidential things they do.
So again, Trump's last tweet just said, there is nothing he can say tonight that can absolve him from letting 15 million people into our country illegally. He'll probably blame me, but I had the safest border in the history of our country, so that won't go very far. That's his latest tweet. That was 3 minutes ago.
See that the White House has in making sure tonight is about setting his agenda moving forward, focusing on what they believe is important. You have the Prime Minister, actually, of Switzerland, Sweden, I'm sorry, who is there, who joined NATO, yes, earlier today. He's there.
If you guys would, please like the stream. That'll help me get more viewers in here.
There's also people who are involved in the Voting Rights Act as well. It's kind of running the gamut. You have the president of UAW showing Biden's strength with the unions this year.
And his hope to keep appealing to them.
Exactly,
because there are
exactly.
a lot of union members who are pro-Trump. So
right.
This is a bloc that they really want on their side.
Right, right. You have Maria Shriver, who many people know her, but she is a journalist and a woman who has been working on women's health issues with the First Lady. She's also there. So you feel like they wanted to check a lot of boxes tonight just by looking at the list of guests.
I just want to point out we see Joe Manchin and Mitt Romney. 2
senators who are leaving after, so this is their last, most likely.
Thank you for the likes that are going on in the stream. If you are just now showing up, Biden is late. He was supposed to be here at 4 o'clock, but he's running 5 minutes late. He's on his way now, but he just has not shown up right now to give his speech. So we're kind of in limbo. They're waiting for him to show up.
Especially who have decided not to seek re-election in the House. It's called the casualty list, people who are leaving or seeking other office. And that list has grown this year. So that does show you that there is a sense here, too, that it is hard to get business done in this current political climate. I do want to let people at home know that this is the part of the night where there is sort of a hush right now in Capitol Hill. Earlier in our show, it was kind of loud.
If you guys want to subscribe, I'll also be doing more of these balanced political sides back and forth as more debates come, if Trump and Biden actually do decide to debate each other, I'm actually going to live stream these more often and fact check the things that they are actually saying. So again, fair and balanced opinion. That's what we're looking for. I'm not doing like political sides here. I just want the facts and the best facts that I can find to put out there. So if you are interested in that, please subscribe. Please hit the like button so more people come into the chat. And thank you for watching.
This year was one of the least productive years in congressional history in terms of legislation passed. So one thing that Rhonda mentioned earlier, and I think we just need to re-emphasize here, is how much does Biden point to Congress? Does Biden lay the blame for things like immigration at the feet of congressional Republicans? Because this is something that we saw, as the Biden campaign talks about how this is in some ways, even though this is a inherently policy speech or thought to be, that this is also sort of a launching pad for the 2024 campaign, a reset for the Biden campaign.
So as I'm refreshing the pages for Trump's Truth Social to get the opinion of what he's about to say, the website is running very slow. So a lot of people are on this website trying to get what he's saying while Biden gives his speech. So there's definitely a delay in the load time going down.
Interesting in this speech tonight, Libby, how much Biden talks specifically about congressional inaction on these things and brings up the fact that we are still talking about funding for the previous fiscal year, and we're only about 6 months away from the funding.
Yeah, this page is being throttled.
Thanks so much, JM. James, let's talk about what people are wearing, how they are choosing to make their opinions and priorities known through both their dress, through their buttons and pins, and through their guests, James.
Yeah, so the white ribbons, we talked about the white that the Democratic women are wearing. That's for reproductive freedom and abortion rights, IVF. The white ribbons that the Republican members are wearing are in honor of Laken Riley. She is the young woman from Georgia who was murdered allegedly by someone in this country illegally. And Donald Trump has made that a major issue. And you also see members of both parties wearing, you see Jerry Connolly there wearing a sticker that says 153 on it. He represents Northern Virginia. 153 is the number of days since the hostages were taken by Hamas on October 7th. And you can see Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman, entering the chamber there. A few minutes behind schedule. I think that there might have been some holdup with people getting over because of protests that were blocking Pennsylvania Avenue and Constitution Avenue, but they're in the building now. That's the second gentleman waving at his wife. She's laughing.
Oh wow!
So people do use this. Troy Nehls, a Republican congressman from Texas.
Hey,
he's wearing
what's
a
going on?
T-shirt with Donald Trump's mugshot on it.
So
and it's
right now we are waiting for President Trump to show up. He's running late. They had just mentioned that they were kind of delayed because of protesters blocking traffic, but he is on his way to deliver the State of the Union address. I am refreshing the page for Truth Social so we can fact check Trump at the same time and get both opinions. However, that website is being throttled right now because a lot of people are trying to visit it.
Just tells you how some of these dynamics.
What's funny is there are odd couples. Joe Wilson, who famously yelled "You lie" at Obama. He's now working with the Biden administration closely to try to get money for Ukraine, which is one of his big priorities. So it's funny how the tables can turn as you see the First Lady Jill Biden come in and the room kind of politely applaud.
All right, so we got a new tweet from Donald Trump just 31 seconds ago. He said, Maxine Waters, very nice woman, even though she's constantly saying she wants to beat up or kill people on the opposite side of the aisle. If I ever said that, they would call me an insurrectionist and all hell would break out.
Lead pipes and expand his business, looking at the priorities
Hey,
there.
Paul.
President's cabinet is coming in. Also looking at some of the other spending priorities that the administration has succeeded with.
Looks like the president's cabinet is just now
the
entering.
administration to modernize infrastructure on tribal lands. So they're really trying to reflect both what they view as their accomplishments in passing legislation, but also priorities. as we see the cabinet come in, we'll be watching to see who might be left behind. James, talk to us.
I will. We're still waiting to know officially who the so-called designated survivor is. But what's striking is no Merrick Garland. That might be by choice. You know, Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel who's prosecuting not just the former president, but also the current president's son. A lot of frustration at the White House with Merrick Garland. So as you look at the cabinet, they're coming in order based on when their cabinet agency was created. So Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, was the first to come in.
Do not have
because
roadblocks.
the State Department's the oldest department. Janet Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury, followed by Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, who was
I didn't see Merrick Garland.
But no Merrick Garland.
Yeah, we did see Deb Haaland,
Yep.
Rhonda.
There's
Let's go to you,
Javier.
Rhonda, for more on what you're seeing.
Yeah, it's a cabinet, but this is so interesting to me because a few of them have been here on Capitol Hill having to testify, and that's usual, right?
So thank you guys for tuning in. If you didn't hear Biden's running late, if you could throw some likes in the stream to kind of grow the chat a little bit, I'd appreciate it. And give me a subscribe or follow, depending on what platform you're watching on.
He was testifying about that. I've mentioned too how Mayorkas, who we are now seeing, has been successfully impeached in the House. However, we're waiting to see if that will be picked up by the Senate in a Senate trial. I actually asked an aide that earlier today if there is any timing yet to know if that is going to go over to the Senate. And she just said they're waiting on the Senate. But this is a cabinet that, you know, not only is the president been in the sights of his opposing party in this chamber, so has his cabinet. So that also is another interesting dynamic here in this room.
Yeah, a little awkward there,
Yeah.
Rhonda, when you think about that in specifically. James, we're also seeing a variety of other secretaries, ranging from the Secretary of Energy to the Secretary of Transportation, faces that people may know from their past politics, like Jennifer Granholm and Pete Buttigieg. What else are you? Oh, there's Merrick Garland. We saw him right there.
Exactly. Yep. So we saw Merrick Garland.
We
the
also
Attorney
saw
General
Lloyd
is
Austin.
there. You know, it is in a sea of black and blue suits. Gina Raimondo, the
Bookholder said, has any other president ever done an intermission before? You know, I don't actually know, but not in my lifetime that I remember. I've never seen an intermission during a State of the Union. It'd be kind of silly if he's up there giving his State of the Union address and he goes into intermission.
I saw this, Sarah.
Okay,
I saw this, Sarah.
well, there you go.
We're trying to figure it out.
All right. So that's important, though. Tell us, James, why the designated survivor is such a big deal.
It dates to the Cold War. You know, you have the entire government. You want continuity of government in case anything happens.
Is that actually in the schedule for this State of the Union, that he's going to take 2 breaks? I didn't look at that. I figured I wouldn't even consider that. I figured he would just run through about an hour-long speech or so, and he'd be done. But if he did schedule some breaks, that does say something.
So we're trying to figure out which one's missing.
Has anyone seen the EP?
Wow, it was announced this morning. I wasn't able to look at it this morning, so I had no clue about that. That is definitely interesting. 2 breaks and 2 intermissions. I guess we will see. We will see what happens.
To try to catch that image, the President of the United States entering, you can see right there. We are based in Statuary Hall with our crew, and we got to see earlier the senators process through Statuary Hall, led by the Vice President Kamala Harris. JM, it is such a classic image that we always see. The Vice President, the Speaker of the House, flanking the President.
So there is a new tweet from Donald Trump. He says, "Thankfully, we won't have to be looking at Rhino Mitt Romney much longer."
Earlier in the broadcast, Kevin McCarthy was in some ways overly stoic last year flanking President Biden. Some of our viewers might remember a few years before that, Boehner's kind of, at times odd or Boehner-like facial expressions behind the president. There have been times when, last year, then Speaker McCarthy kind of had to hush some of his members or tell them to tone it down when they were kind of interrupting the president. That's, how much those interruptions or sort of exchange.
Maybe a bit of confusion at first, but I got you now. But I've never seen anything like that. Yeah, that's crazy if he's actually going to do that. Especially with all of the hate coming at him for being old and all that, etc. And he's going to take 2 breaks during that, and it hasn't been done before. That's very questionable.
Feet there. One thing I'll quickly mention on the cabinet secretaries, we saw Julie Su come in dressed all in blue. She's been acting for the last year because of a holdup in the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
Okay, so it looks like Biden just arrived. He's about 17 minutes late, but you know, if he had traffic because of protests, you know, it's not really much he can do about that, I guess.
The President of the United States will walk down that
There he is.
aisle and be greeted by members of the House who are flanking the aisle, also senators and, of course, cabinet members. James, squeeze in for us who the designated survivor is. Answer the trivia question of the night, and then also reflect on what you're seeing from the president here.
The Education Secretary, Miguel Cardona, is the only cabinet secretary who is not in the chamber. A White House official confirms. Everyone else we've seen is president accounted for. Cardona, a close ally of Jill Biden, former Connecticut Education Secretary.
That's correct. He
staying
is
behind
81
tonight
years old.
In case anything happens.
So, what are you watching here, James, as we see the president? He's only made it about, what would you say, Rhonda, 3 feet inside maybe 10 feet inside.
What I'm watching for, that's Tim Blanchard, one of the people who voted to remove Kevin McCarthy, actually. I'm watching to see whether Joe Biden makes a case for himself or if he makes a case for his worldview. You know, he is obviously, he's probably not going to mention Donald Trump by name. He'll allude to him, he'll refer to him. But ultimately, if the president wants to change the trajectory of the election, a campaign that he is currently losing, he will need to convince the American people that this election is not really about him versus Donald Trump, that it's about something bigger. And this is one of the few circumstances and situations where you can really reach people who may not otherwise listen to you. It may not, be a huge audience of persuadable voters, but there's millions and millions of Americans who are what the pollsters call double doubters, which is they don't really like Joe Biden, and they also don't really like Donald Trump. And Joe Biden needs to convince them, in many cases they voted for him in 2020, to vote for him again in 2024. I expect that Republicans are actually going to be on pretty good behavior. Mike Johnson has told them to be, even Matt Gaetz, I've just heard from a source.
He's really taking his sweet time to get up there after being almost 20 minutes late.
But the statecraft, the pageantry, Joe Biden really has an opportunity tonight to make a case for Bidenism, but also for international engagement, a case against protectionism and isolationism and
Well,
nativism.
people are watching.
If
Yeah, I
he
definitely
chooses to
appreciate
do it.
everyone watching.
We'll see if he rises to that moment.
Rhonda.
I'm just waiting because Biden was shaking everyone's hand. Marjorie Taylor Greene was on the side there. She's wearing the Make America Great Again
13
hat,
just
and,
now. 14 now,
I thought
actually.
At one point he
I
might
got
shake
14
her hand.
viewers
He's passing by her
and
right
4
now
likes.
in the
So if you guys just joined,
She's one of
Biden
the
was a little bit
fiercest
late.
supporters
They were saying
supporters of the
protesters
former
were stopping
president, and
people
I
from
don't
coming
see that they are
in.
engaging right now.
So
but
he
again,
was
that
about
shows you the dynamics we've been
17
talking
minutes
about.
late.
This
He was supposed to start at 4 o'clock, but he's working his way up there now.
House than she is
I'm going to
mounting
be
something to him. I
going
don't know
back and
what it
forth
is.
between Trump's tweets, because he
but it
is
appears other
live
people are tapping him and he's
tweeting
moving on.
his arguments for the State of the Union
Perhaps,
to make it
we
fair
might
and
get a readout
balanced.
at some point late tonight or tomorrow
And,
as to what they might
yeah, it's
have
gonna be a good
said,
time,
but,
so.
this is Joe Biden. Some presidents have,
If you would,
just
throw me a like
shaken hands every 5
on the stream
people.
so we
Joe
can grow the
Biden is
stream.
type to
And if
shake
you like
everyone's
what you
hand.
see and you want to see me do more of these,
and this is where the
please
White House
subscribe
says he
or
is most
follow if you're on
comfortable with.
Twitch.
And I noticed Steve Scalise right there, notable, of course, because of the cancer treatments he's been undergoing. He could have become the Speaker of the House.
He could have, yeah. He could have. He was in the running.
Did not make that cut in sort of the chaotic rise of Speaker Mike Johnson. You can see Al Green there taking a photograph, doing a selfie with the president. JM, let's talk about this aisle position and what it means to members to be able to snag that
Thank you
moment.
for the likes.
Yeah, these members have staked out these seats for hours. We just saw Terry Sewell, Democrat from Alabama, taking a selfie. with the president. We see Senator Martin Heinrich from New Mexico there. Earlier, we saw Democrat Sanford Bishop, who's the dean of the Georgia House delegation after the passing of former Congressman John Lewis. And now we see this exchange with
So I got 2 tweets here from Trump about 5 minutes ago for one and 4 for the other. So the first one says, Joe Manchin had it made, was one of the most popular politicians in America, but then he, as he usually does, blew it. He approved the Inflation Reduction Act and he was toast, not recoverable. And for the second tweet, he says, Crooked Joe is making his way to the chamber. Very disrespectful to some, not good.
And they can see themselves on air right now. I'm going to talk to Rhonda in a moment about Senator Chris Coons, who she talked to earlier. But James, I want you to reflect on the way that Joe Biden handled Joe Manchin, because there was a lot of fury about Joe Manchin getting in the way of legislation progressing earlier in the Biden administration. But instead of punching him and really scolding him publicly, Joe Biden took a different tactic. What do you know about the president and how he operates that way?
Well, it's interesting because there is tension within the administration. And indeed, when Biden first came in, Kamala Harris gave TV interviews to West Virginia stations. She even wrote an op-ed in a West Virginia newspaper that said Manchin needs to vote for the American Rescue Plan. Joe Manchin is still incensed about that. He still complains about it to people.
I'll be right back.
As recently as last
I'm just going
week.
to go to the restroom before he starts.
But Biden himself has sort of a rapport and a relationship that's a lot better with Manchin than, say, the chief of staff or others. And Democrats were angry at Manchin. The crowd is chanting 4 more years there, but Democrats are angry at Manchin. But now Republicans are certain to pick up his Senate seat as he doesn't run for re-election. And they have 51 seats right now, so that takes them down to 50-50 just as the baseline. So they'll certainly miss Manchin when he's gone.
We can see the Supreme Court, who holds so much power, Rhonda, as they decide the fate of Donald Trump's electability, his qualifications for sitting in court, and that could ultimately decide whether or not he wins the presidency. We did see the president speaking with Ketanji Brown Jackson, first black woman to sit on the Supreme Court, his nominee.
And that was a part of his promise to black
Absolutely.
voters, that he would place the first black woman on the Supreme Court, something he did follow through with. I just want to point out that we're all looking to see if Joe Biden is going to have any energy in this speech. If he doesn't bring the energy, I believe the House Democrats and Senate Democrats, but mainly the House Democrats, will give him some of that energy. They, throughout this entire time in the 118th Congress, have been in lockstep with each other, which has been the split screen when we've seen the tensions boil over on the House Republican side. And they do want to show a unified front. I've mentioned before that almost all of the guests that a lot of the Democrats are bringing are related to the reproductive rights issue. They really want to underscore that as something that they believe they need the chance to govern. In those down ballot races in November, they need their chance to govern and restore some of those rights again. And he will likely focus on that as well.
Yeah, so I've been refreshing Truth Social, and I've been able to get through and get the tweets. So
earlier today.
He's, I asked
as he
him,
updates
why
them, I
isn't
will
Biden's message
read them
resonating
off.
with a lot of Americans. Biden has had
But
some
Truth Social
legislative
is
achievements
very,
early on.
very lagged out at the morning. So it does take a minute to refresh the page, but it's not completely down for me.
White House says just haven't been felt by the American people. Chris Coons said he's just got to be He's got to be out there bragging about it, because he is also up against an opponent who has no problem speaking about himself. So that is what Democrats want to see more of the president do. Talk about the achievements, but they also know he's got to handle the border. He's got to handle reproductive rights and talk about those kitchen table issues as well.
Stay with the Washington
If you
Post
guys can
about
throw me
live
some
coverage
likes to
after
grow the
the
stream
president
and the chat, I'd
speaks
appreciate it.
at this
And if you want to see
State
more
of
of
the
this,
Union.
give me a subscribe or a
We'll be
follow
checking
if you're
in with
on
one of our colleagues
Twitch.
who's actually in that chamber tonight, watching and witnessing it.
Paul,
Rhonda,
can
there's a
I
lot
see
of
your
energy
dog?
in that room tonight.
My dog doesn't
A
come into
long
this
day, a
room
long
because there's
week,
too much
trying to keep the
equipment.
government open again
He's
for the fifth
downstairs
time.
with my wife.
They've all been here for a long time today, but they seem to have a lot of energy right now and really want to hear this speech.
He's not coming in this room.
The president looking up for his
There's
wife,
too
the
much
First Lady,
equipment
a
in here.
reminder that she is surrounded by people who are there with meaning and purpose to represent priorities,
But
goals, and
he's in a picture in
successes
my
of this
thumbnail.
White House.
And maybe when we're gaming more, I can like take a camera out there or something and show you
Good
guys.
evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now.
All right, here we go. We're starting.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, members of Congress, my fellow Americans. In January 1941, Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, "I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War.
That's funny. No need to
Have
yell.
freedom and democracy been under assault
You
at
got a
home
mic.
as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not.
Thank you to the person who just subscribed.
But Ukraine can stop Putin. Ukraine can stop Putin if we stand with Ukraine and provide the weapons.
So Trump just tweeted out, he said they are really late, very disrespectful to our country. That was 6 minutes ago. 5 minutes ago, he said, who kissed him on the cheek with lipstick? Now he's got lipstick on his face. How stupid of her. And then their final tweet here 4 minutes ago says they are really late, very disrespectful to our country.
It needs to defend itself. That is all. That is all Ukraine is asking. They're not asking for American soldiers. In fact, there are no American soldiers at war in Ukraine, and I'm determined to
Thank you
keep
for
it
the
that way.
subscriber.
But now, assistance to Ukraine is being blocked by those who want to walk away from our world leadership. It wasn't long ago when a Republican president named Ronald Reagan thundered, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Now,
Someone in the chat said that there are scheduled
Now my
breaks during this,
predecessor-
which I have never seen in my lifetime
a
before.
former Republican president tells Putin, quote, "Do whatever the hell you want." That's a quote. A former president actually said that, bowing down to a Russian leader. I think it's outrageous, it's dangerous, and it's unacceptable.
I will show my dog, but right now I'm watching the State of the Union.
As a founding member of NATO, the military alliance of democratic nations created after World War II to prevent war and keep the peace. And today, we've made NATO stronger than ever. We welcomed Finland to the alliance last year. And just this morning, Sweden officially joined, and their minister is here tonight. So they're stand up. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And they know how to fight. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to NATO, the strongest military alliance the world has ever seen. I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin.
I will,
Send
just
me a
not right now.
bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching. Just like history watched 3 years ago on January 6th, when insurrectionists stormed this very Capitol and placed a dagger to the throat of American democracy. Many of you were here on that darkest of days. We all saw with our own eyes the insurrectionists were not patriots. They'd come to stop the peaceful transfer of power, to overturn the will of the people. January 6th lies about the 2020 election and the plots to steal the election posed a gravest threat to U.S. democracy since the Civil War. But they failed. America stood. America stood strong, and democracy prevailed. We must be honest. The threat to democracy must be defended. My predecessor and some of you here seek to bury the truth about January 6th. I will not do that. This is the moment to speak the truth and to bury the lies. Here's the simple truth. You can't love your country only when you win.
I'm trying to refresh Truth Social right now to see what Trump is saying, and that website is just getting throttled. So hopefully I can get through again.
As I've done ever since being elected to office, I ask all of you, without regard to party, to join together and defend democracy. Remember your oath of office is defending against all threats, foreign and domestic. Respect free and fair elections, restore trust in our institutions, and make clear political violence has absolutely no place in America, zero place. Again, it's not hyperbole to suggest history is watching. We're watching. Your children and grandchildren will read about this day and what we do. History is watching another assault on freedom. Joining us tonight is Latoya Beasley, a social worker from Birmingham, Alabama. 14 months ago, she and her husband welcomed a baby girl thanks to the miracle of IVF. She scheduled treatments to have that second child, but the Alabama Supreme Court shut down IVF treatments across the state, unleashed by a Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade. She was told her dream would have to wait. What her family had got through should never have happened. Unless Congress acts, it could happen again. So tonight, let's stand up for families like hers. To my friends across the aisle, don't keep this waiting any longer. Guarantee the right to AVF. Guarantee it nationwide.
Come on, man. Don't do Hunter like that.
Like most Americans, I believe Roe v. Wade got it right. I thank Vice President Harris for being an incredible leader, defending reproductive freedom, and so much more. Thank you. My predecessor came to office determined to see Roe v. Wade overturned. He's the reason it was overturned, and he brags about it. Look at the chaos that has resulted. Joining us tonight is Kate Cox, the wife and mother from Dallas. She's become pregnant again and had a fetus of a fatal condition. Her doctor told Kate that her own life and her ability to have children in the future were at risk if she didn't act. Because Texas law.
Okay, so I was able to get Truth Social back up. 6 minutes ago, Trump said his hair is much better in the front than on the back. And then 5 minutes ago, he said this is the longest walk-in presidential history. It is ridiculous. Now he's actually taking selfies at their request. He's not a photographer. He's got to get moving.
Banned her ability to act. Kate and her husband had to leave the state to get what she needed. What her family got through should have never happened as well, but it's happening in too many others. There are state laws banning the freedom to choose, criminalizing doctors, forcing survivors of rape and incest to leave their states to get the treatment they need. Many of you in this chamber and my predecessor are promising to pass a national ban on reproductive freedom. My God, what freedom else would you take away? Look, it's a decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court majority wrote the following, and with all due respect, justices, women are not without electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Clearly.
Is the stream lagging? I'm not seeing anything on my end.
Clearly. Those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020. And
it might just be a
again
Twitch
in
thing.
2024.
It looks like YouTube's running fine.
If you, the American people, send me a Congress that supports the right to choose, I promise you, I'll restore Roe v. Wade as the law of the land again. Folks, America cannot go back. I'm here tonight to show what I believe is the way forward, because I know how far we come. 4 years ago next week, before I came to office, the country was hit by the worst pandemic and the worst economic crisis in a century. Remember the fear, record losses? Remember the spikes in crime and the murder rate, raging virus that took more than 1 million American lives of loved ones, millions left behind? A mental health crisis of isolation and loneliness. A president, my predecessor, failed the most basic presidential duty that he owes to American people, the duty to care. I think that's unforgivable. I came to office determined to get us through one of the toughest periods in the nation's history. We have.
Somebody just shouted out lies.
News in 1,000 cities and towns, the American people are writing the greatest comeback story never told. So let's tell the story here. Tell it here and now. America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot, and we leave no one behind. The pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. That's what America does. That's what America does. Folks, my inherited economy is on the brink. Now our economy is literally the envy of the world. 15 million new jobs in just 3 years, a record, a record. Unemployment at 50-year lows. A record 16 million Americans are starting small businesses, and each one is a literal act of hope. With historic job growth and small business growth for Black and Hispanics and Asian Americans, 800,000 new manufacturing jobs in America and counting. Where is it written we can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? We are, and we will. More people have health insurance today. More people have health insurance today than ever before. The racial wealth gap is as small as it's been in 20 years. Wages keep going up. Inflation keeps coming down. Inflation has dropped from 9% to 3%, the lowest in the world. And
Yeah, I think the lag was
lower.
just on Twitch. But there was only one guy over there, and he left
The
shortly after
landing
saying
is
that.
and will be soft.
YouTube stream seems to be fine.
And now, instead of importing foreign products and exporting American jobs, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs. Right here in America, where they belong. And it takes time, but the American people are beginning to feel it. Consumer
Hey, I
studies
appreciate
show
you trying,
consumer
Chase.
confidence is soaring. Buy
You gave it the old
American
college try.
has been the law of the land since the 1930s. Past administrations, including my predecessor, including some Democrats as well in the past, failed to buy American. Not anymore. On my watch, federal projects that you fund, like helping build American roads, bridges, and highways, will be made with American products and built by American workers. Creating good-paying American jobs. And thanks to our CHIPS and Science Act, the United States is investing more in research and development than ever before. During the pandemic, a shortage of semiconductors, chips, that drove up the price of everything from cell phones to automobiles. And by the way, we invented those chips right here in America. Well, instead of having to import them, private companies are now investing billions of dollars to build new chip factories here in America, creating tens of thousands of jobs. Many of those jobs paying $100,000 a year and don't require a college degree.
So Trump just tweeted 28 seconds ago, interesting that Romney and Manchin are sitting together and nobody wants to talk to them. I think they'd make a great no-label team.
In fact, my policies have attracted $650 billion in private sector investment in clean energy, advanced manufacturing, creating tens of thousands of jobs here in America. And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it. I'm with you. I'm with you. If any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernizing our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage. Providing affordable high-speed internet for every American, no matter where you live, urban, suburban, or rural communities, in red states and blue states. Record investments in tribal communities. Because of my investment in family farms, because I invested in family farms led by my Secretary of Agriculture, who knows more about this than anybody I know, we're better able to stay in the family for those farms and their children and grandchildren won't have to leave home to make a living. It's transformative. The great comeback story.
So Putin is already trying to fact check him, or not Putin, sorry, I guess. Trump is already fact checking him. He says that Putin only invaded Ukraine because he has no respect for Biden, would have never happened under the Trump administration, and for 4 years it didn't happen. No, I said NATO has to pay its bills, and if it doesn't pay its bills, we are not going to, oh, come on, the ad. We're not going to protect you. The money came pouring in. Under our presidents, NATO was broke. NATO only became strong because of me. I got the NATO nations to pay up. They were almost all delinquent. The United States was paying for them all. The so-called insurrections that he talks about had no guns. They only had a rigged election. The only gun that was used was on Ashley Bobbitt, who sadly is no longer with us.
Belvedere, Illinois, home to an auto plant for nearly 60 years. Before I came to office, the plant was on its way to shutting down. Thousands of workers feared for their livelihoods. Hope was fading. Then I was elected to office, and we raised the Belvedere repeatedly with auto companies, knowing unions would make all the difference. The UAW worked like hell to keep the plant open and get these jobs back, and together we succeeded. Instead of auto factories shutting down, auto factories reopening, a new state-of-the-art battery factory is being built to power those cars there at the same. The folks of Belvedere, I say, instead of your town being left behind, your community is moving forward again. Because instead of watching auto jobs of the future go overseas, 4,000 union jobs with higher wages are building the future in Belvedere right here in America.
Trump just said he just screwed up his primary line of the evening having to do with Roe versus Wade while looking at the highly respected justices of the Supreme Court for whom it was intended. He is so angry and crazy. And then he's quoting him saying the pandemic no longer controls our lives. The vaccines that saved us from COVID are now being used to help beat cancer, turning setback into comeback. You're welcome, Joe. 9-month approval time versus 12 years that it would have taken you.
Here tonight is UAW President Shawn Fain, a great friend and a great labor leader. Shawn, where are you? Stand up. And Dawn Sims, a third-generation worker, UAW worker at Belvedere. Shawn, I was proud to be the first president to stand on the picket line, and today, Dawn has a good job in her hometown, providing stability for her family and pride and dignity as well. Showing once again, Wall Street didn't build America. They're not bad guys. They didn't build it, though. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class. I say to the American people, when America gets knocked down, we get back up. We keep going. That's America. That's you, the American people. It's because of you America's coming back. It's because of you our future is brighter. It's because of you that tonight we can proudly say the state of our union is strong and getting stronger.
Four more years, apparently. Standing ovation.
Tonight, I want to talk about the future of possibilities that we can build together. A future where the days of trickle-down economics are over, and the wealthy and the biggest corporations no longer get all the tax breaks. And by the way, I understand corporations. I come from a state that has more corporations invested than every one of your states in the state of the United States combined. And I represented it for 36 years. I'm not anti-corporation. But
you guys could
up
please like the
in
stream.
a home where trickle-down economics didn't put much on my dad's kitchen table. That's why I determined to turn things around so middle class does well. When they do well, the poor go way up and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well. And there's more to do to make sure you're feeling the benefits of all we're doing. Americans pay more for prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. It's wrong, and I'm ending it. For the law that I proposed and signed, not one of you Republican buddies voted for it. We finally beat Big Pharma. Instead of paying $400 a month or thereabouts for insulin with diabetes, and it only costs $10 to make, they only get paid $35 a month now and still make a healthy profit. And I want to, but what to do next? I want to cap the cost of insulin at $35 a month for every American who needs it. Everyone. For years, people have talked about it, but finally we got it done and gave Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices on prescription drugs, just like the VA is able to do for veterans. That's not just saving seniors money, it's saving taxpayers money. We cut the federal deficit by $160 billion. Because Medicare will no longer have to pay those exorbitant prices to Big Pharma. This year, Medicare is negotiating lower prices for some of the costliest drugs on the market to treat everything from heart disease to arthritis. It's now time to go further and give Medicare the power to negotiate lower prices for 500 different drugs over the next decade. They're making a lot of money, guys. And they'll still be extremely profitable.
I'm sure they're out
Not
there.
only save lives, it will save taxpayers another $200 billion. Starting next year, the same law caps total prescription drug costs for seniors on Medicare at $2,000 a year.
Thank you
These
to the
were
subscriber.
expensive cancer drugs that cost $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. Now I want to cap prescription drug costs at $2,000.
I'm not seeing any new tweets from Trump right now.
Folks, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that, but if you want to get an Air Force One and fly to Toronto, Berlin, Moscow, well, even Moscow, probably. And bring your prescription with you, and I promise you I'll get it for you for 40% the cost you're paying now. Same company, same drug, same place. Folks, the Affordable Care Act, the old Obamacare, it's still a very big deal.
All right, so now we got some tweets from Trump. So first one, he says, why doesn't he bring up East Palestine and the other towns all throughout America that he has left behind and destroyed with inflation? And then he says, Sean Fain sold out the auto workers. All electric cars will be built in China within 3 years. They should throw him out. Michigan is ashamed of what he has done. Next one says, Biden's all electric car mandate is a disaster for our country, but great for China. And the final one says he did nothing for the VA, Veterans Administration, or the veterans. It was all Trump.
Over 100 million of you can no longer be denied health insurance because of pre-existing condition. But my predecessor, and many in this chamber, want to take this prescription drug away by repealing the Affordable Care Act. I'm not going to let that happen. We stopped you 50 times before and we'll stop you again. In fact, I'm not only protecting it, I'm expanding it. We enacted tax credits of $800 per person per year, reduce health care costs for millions of working families. That tax credit expires next year. I want to make that savings permanent. To state the obvious, women are more than half our population, but research on women's health has always been underfunded. That's why we're launching the first ever White House initiative on women's health research, led by Jill, doing an incredible job as First Lady. We'll pass my plan for $12 billion to transfer women's health research and benefit millions of lives all across America. I know the cost of housing is so important to you. If inflation keeps coming down, mortgage rates will come down as well, and the Fed acknowledges that. But
Thank
I'm
you to
not
the
waiting.
subscriber.
I want to provide an annual tax credit that will give Americans $400 a month for the next 2 years as mortgage rates come down, to put toward their mortgages when they buy their first home or trade up for a little more space. Just for 2 years. And my administration is also eliminating title insurance on federally backed mortgages. When you refinance your home, you can save $1,000 or more as a consequence. For millions of renters, we're cracking down on big landlords who use antitrust law, who break antitrust laws by price fixing and driving up rents. We've cut red tape so builders can get federally financing, which is already helping build a record 1.7 million new housing units nationwide. Now pass and build and renovate 2 million affordable homes and bring those rents down.
And the price of home will rise. The problem with housing is the lack of housing.
To remain the strongest economy in the world, we need to have the best education system in the world. And I, like I suspect all of you, want to give every child, a good start by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old.
So Trump just said all reduction pricing was done by us and kicked in after we left.
You know, I think I pointed out last year that children coming from broken homes where there's no books, they're not read to, not spoken to very often, start school, kindergarten, or first grade, having heard 1 million fewer words spoken. Well, studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school, go on to earn a 2- and 4-year degree, no matter what their background is. I met a year and a half ago with the leaders of the Business Roundtable. They were mad that they were angry, I think, well, they were discussing why I wanted to spend money on education. I pointed out to them as vice president, I met with over 182 of those folks. Don't hold me to the exact number. And I asked them what they need most, the CEOs. And you've had the same experience on both sides of the aisle. They say a better educated workforce, right? So I looked at them, and I say, I come from Delaware. DuPont used to be the 8th largest corporation in the world. And every new enterprise they bought, they educated the workforce to that enterprise. But none of you do that anymore. Why are you angry with me providing you the opportunity for the best educated workforce in the world? And they all looked at me and said, I think you're right. I want to expand high-quality tutoring and summer learning to see that every child learns to read by 3rd grade. I'm also connecting local businesses and high schools so students get hands-on experience and a path to a good-paying job, whether or not they go to college. And I want to make sure the college is more affordable.
I know I have that issue here in Hawaii. The housing supply is just not there. And it creates a huge demand on top of people already wanting to be here. But a lot of the local Hawaiians are kind of pushed out of the economy because there's no homes.
And I was told I couldn't universally just
so you get like a family in there,
dealt with student loans.
like a big family in one
two
house.
Student loan programs that already existed to reduce the burden of student debt for nearly 4 million Americans, including nurses, firefighters, and others in public service. like Keenan Jones, a public educator from Minnesota, who's here with us tonight. Keenan, where are you? Keenan, thank you. He's educated hundreds of students so they can go to college. Now he's able to help, after debt forgiveness, get his own daughter to college. And folks, look, such relief is good for the economy because folks are now able to buy a home, start a business, start a family. While we're at it, I want to give public school teachers a raise.
I'm in Kentucky, no inventory here as well. Oh, I didn't know that about Kentucky. That's crazy.
And by the way, the first couple of years, we cut the deficit. Now, let me speak to the question of fundamental fairness for all Americans. I've been delivering real results in fiscally responsible ways. We've already cut the federal deficit. We've already cut the federal deficit over $1 trillion. I signed the bipartisan deal to cut another $1 trillion in the next decade. It's my goal to cut the federal deficit another $3 trillion by making big corporations and very wealthy finally beginning to pay their fair share. Look, I'm a capitalist. If you want to make or can make $1 million or millions of bucks, that's great. Just pay your fair share in taxes. A fair tax code is how we invest things to make this country
All right, Paul.
great.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Education, defense, and so much more. But here's the deal. The last administration enacted a $2 trillion tax cut, overwhelmingly benefit the top 1%, the very wealthy and the biggest corporations, and exploded the federal deficit. They added more to the national debt than any presidential term in American history. Check the numbers. Folks at home, does anybody really think the tax code is fair? Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax break? I sure don't. I'm going to keep fighting like hell to make it fair. Under my plan, nobody earning less than $400,000 a year will pay an additional penny in federal taxes. Nobody, not one penny. And they haven't yet. In fact, the child tax credit I passed during the pandemic cut taxes for millions of working families and cut child poverty in half. Restore that child tax credit. No child should go hungry in this country. The way to make the tax code fair is to make big corporations and the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Remember in 2020, 55 of the biggest companies in America made $40 billion and paid zero in federal income tax. Zero. Not anymore. Thanks to the law I wrote and we signed, big companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. But that's still less than working people pay in federal taxes. It's time to raise corporate minimum tax to at least 21%. So every big corporation finally begins to pay their fair share. I also want to end tax breaks for big pharma, big oil, private jets, massive executive pay when it's only supposed to be $1 million that can be deducted. They can pay them $20 million if they want, but deduct $1 million. End it now. You know, there are 1,000 billionaires in America. You know what the average federal tax is for those billionaires? No. They're making great sacrifices, 8.2%. That's far less than the vast majority of Americans pay. No billionaire should pay a lower federal tax rate than a teacher, a sanitation worker, or a nurse. I propose a minimum tax for billionaires at 25%, just 25%. You know what that would raise? That would raise $500 billion over the next 10 years. And imagine what that could do for America. Imagine
sorry about that.
With affordable child care.
I was saying the protests outside of the White House were for Gaza. So they're holding signs basically saying that Biden's legacy is genocide. So that's why he was late. There's just a lot of people out there protesting.
Millions of families can get they need to go to work to help grow the economy. Imagine a future with paid leave, because no one should have to choose between working and taking care of their sick family member.
There's videos of people holding hands in the road and
the future of
stopping
home care
traffic and stuff
elder
like
care.
that.
And people living with disabilities, so they can stay in their homes and family caregivers can finally get the pay they deserve. Tonight, let's all agree once again to stand up for seniors. Many of my friends on the other side of the aisle want to put Social Security on the chopping block. If anyone here tries to cut Social Security, Medicare, or raise the retirement age, I will stop you. The working people.
So let's go back to Trump's tweets. He just said, the drugs are wearing off, in all caps. The coughing, always the coughing. Then he says, they only show the Democrats clapping. They rarely show the other side of the room. It's called the Republican side. And he posted a picture of Biden looking very angry. And then he said, Republicans have no plan to cut Social Security, a made-up story by Crooked Joe.
Working people who built this country pay more into Social Security than millionaires and billionaires do. It's not fair. We have two ways to go. Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut?
As this goes on, I think it's going to get more and more hostile.
Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion for the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share. Look, too many corporations raise prices to pad their profits, charging more and more for less and less. That's why we're cracking down on corporations that engage in price gouging and deceptive pricing, from food to healthcare to housing. In fact, the snack companies think you won't notice if they change the size of the bag and put a hell of a lot fewer, same size bag, put fewer chips in it. No, I'm not joking. It's called shrinkflation. Pass Bobby Casey's bill and stop this. I really mean it. You probably all saw that commercial on Snickers bars. You get charged the same amount, and you got about, I don't know, 10% fewer Snickers in it. Look, I'm also getting rid of junk fees.
That's true, I'll give him that. Shrinkflation is a real thing.
At the end of your bill, they're there without your knowledge. My administration announced we're cutting credit card late fees from $32 to $8. Banks and credit card companies are allowed to charge what it costs them to instigate the collection. And that's more a hell of a lot like $8 and 30-some dollars. They don't like it. The credit card companies don't like it. But I'm saving American families $20 billion a year with all the junk fees I'm eliminating. Folks at home, that's why the banks are so mad. It's $20 billion in profit. I'm not stopping there. My administration.
So Trump just said, inflation under Biden is killing America. All 50 states have set new record high gas prices under Biden.
proposed rules to make cable, travel, utilities, and online ticket sellers tell you the total price up front, so there are no surprises. It matters. It matters. And so does this. In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now.
Trump just said Biden talked about the Snickers bar before he talked about the border. He has Trump derangement syndrome.
What are you against? 100 more high-tech drug detection machines to significantly increase the ability to screen and stop vehicles smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, a majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress and the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win. He viewed it as will be a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really.
What just happened?
Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border because they know if they get by and let into the country, it's 6 to 8 years before they have a hearing. And it's worth taking the chance of the $8,000. But if it's only 6 weeks, the idea is it's highly unlikely that people will pay that money and come all that way knowing that they'll be able to be kicked out quickly. Folks.
All right, there's a lot of hostilities there, but Trump's tweeting again. He says his border bill is a disaster. It would let at least 5,000 migrants in a day, and that is one of the better aspects of it. Don't shake people's hands going out. He keeps coughing into his right hand. Then he says, see, as he's getting ready to cough yet again into his right hand, the fake news media rushes him off the screen.
I would respectfully suggest my Republican friends owe it to the American people, get this bill done. We need to act now. And if my predecessor is watching, instead of paying politics and pressuring members of Congress to block the bill, join me in telling the Congress to pass it. We can do it together, but that's what here's what he will not do. I will not demonize immigrants saying they are poison in the blood of our country. I will not separate families. I will not ban people because of their faith. Unlike my predecessor on my first day in office, I introduced a comprehensive bill to fix our immigration system. Take a look at it. It has all these and more. Secure the border, provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, and so much more. But unlike my predecessor, I know who we are as Americans. We're the only nation in the world with a heart and soul that draws from old and new. Home to Native Americans whose ancestors have been here for thousands of years. Home to people of from every place on earth. They came freely. Some came in chains. Some came when famine struck, like my ancestral family in Ireland. Some to flee persecution, to chase dreams that are impossible anywhere.
The ball guy, I missed him again.
That's
I
America.
was looking to see if he tweeted anymore.
Somewhere, but we're all Americans.
Let's see if they go back.
Look, folks, we have a simple choice. We can fight about fixing the border, or we can fix it.
Trump just said pass the Freedom to Cheat in Voting Act, which is really what he wants.
I'm ready to fix it. Send me the border bill now. A transformational moment in history happened 59 years ago today in Selma, Alabama. Hundreds of foot soldiers for justice marched across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, named after the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, to claim their fundamental right to vote. They were beaten, they were bloody, and left for dead. Our late friend and former colleague, John Lewis, was on that march. We miss him. But joining us tonight are other marchers, both in the gallery and on the floor, including Betty Mae Fikes, known as the voice of Selma. The daughter of gospel singers and preachers, she sang songs of prayer and protest on that bloody Sunday to help shake the nation's conscience. 5 months later, the Voting Rights Act passed and was signed into law.
Thank you to the person who just subscribed. I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Possibly, yeah, it's a big moment. You know, the president, acknowledging you. She could be crying.
59 years later, there are forces taking us back in time. Voter suppression, election subversion, unlimited dark money, extreme gerrymandering. John Lewis is a great friend to many of us here, but if you truly want to honor him and all the heroes who marched with him, then it's time to do more than talk. Pass!
Trump just said other countries are laughing at our stupidity on climate. The Green New scam is destroying our economy and our country.
The Freedom to Vote Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And stop denying another core value of America, our diversity across American life. Banning books, it's wrong. Instead of erasing history, let's make history. I want to protect fundamental rights. Pass the Equality Act. And my message to transgender Americans, I have your back. Pass the PRO Act for workers' rights. Raise the federal minimum wage, because every worker has a right to a decent living more than $7 an hour. We're also making history by confronting the climate crisis, not denying it. I don't think any of you think there's no longer a climate crisis. At least I hope you don't. I'm taking the most significant action ever on climate in the history of the world.
Trump just said he's talking about violence, but migrant violence is leading to the worst crime wave in history.
I'm cutting our carbon emissions in half by 2030, creating tens of thousands of clean energy jobs like the IBEW work is building and installing 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations. Conserving 30% of America's lands and waters by 2030. And taking action on environmental justice fence line communities smothered by the legacy of pollution. And pattern after the Peace Corps and AmeriCorps, I launched the Climate Corps to put 20,000 young people to work in the forefront of our clean energy future. I'll triple that number in a decade. To state the obvious, all Americans deserve the freedom to be safe.
I have to say Biden's
America's
doing
safer
good, but
today than when I took office.
that's what a 30 mil of Adderall and 2 black rifle
murder rates went up
can
30%.
do. But
30% they went up. The biggest increase in
why are these
history.
people yelling?
It was then, through my
Yeah,
American
please
Rescue
kick those
Plan,
people
which every
out.
American voted against, I might add, we made the largest investment in
This
public
isn't Jerry
safety ever.
Springer.
Last year, the murder rate saw the sharpest decrease in history. Violent crime fell to one of its lowest levels in more than 50 years. But we have more to do. We have to help cities invest in more community police officers, more mental health workers, more community violence intervention. Give communities the tool to crack down on gun crime, retail crime, and carjacking. Keep building trust as they've been doing by taking executive action on police reform and calling for it to be the law of the land. Directing my cabinet to review the federal classification of marijuana and expunging thousands of convictions for the mere possession, because no one should be jailed
Absolutely,
for simply
Jane.
using or have it on their record.
Yeah, just let him talk. And if that was Trump, I would say the same thing. Just, I mean, it's the
Take on
president.
crimes of domestic
Let him give his
violence.
speech.
I'm ramping up the federal enforcement of the Violence Against Women Act that I proudly wrote when I was a senator, so we can finally end the scourge against women in America. There are other kinds of violence I want to stop. With us tonight is Jasmine, whose 9-year-old sister Jackie was murdered with 21 classmates and teachers in an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. Very soon after that happened, Jill and I went to Uvalde for a couple of days. We spent hours and hours with each of the families. We heard their message, so everyone in this room, in this chamber, could hear the same message. The constant refrain, and I was there for hours meeting with every family. They said, do something. Do something. Well, I did do something by establishing the first ever Office of Gun Violence Prevention in the White House, that the Vice President is leading the charge. Thank you for doing it.
So back to Trump, he just said he wants to take everyone's guns away. Remember that when you go to the voting booth, because if I'm not elected, your guns are gone along with your freedom. And then he said, what a contrast between Republicans and Democrats.
Meanwhile, my predecessor told the NRA he's proud he did nothing on guns when he was president. Oh. After another shooting in Iowa recently, he said, when asked what to do about it, he said, just get over it. There's his quote, just get over it. I say, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it.
Trump just said he's having a hard time now. The words are not flowing smoothly out of his mouth.
I'm proud we beat the NRA when I signed the most significant gun safety law in nearly 30 years because of this Congress. We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Pass universal background checks. None of this. None of this. I taught the Second Amendment for 12 years. None of this violates the Second Amendment or vilifies responsible gun owners. You know, as we manage challenges at home, we're also managing crises abroad, including in the Middle East. I know the last 5 months have been gut-wrenching for so many people, for the Israeli people, for the Palestinian people, and so many here in America. This crisis began on October 7th with a massacre by a terrorist group called Hamas, as you all know. 1,200 innocent people, women and girls, men and boys, slaughtered after enduring sexual violence. The deadliest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and 250 hostages taken. Here in this chamber tonight are families whose loved ones are still being held by Hamas. I pledge to all the families that we will not rest until we bring every one of your loved ones home. We also
Trump just said Crooked Joe is selling you out. He's selling you out to China, and he's selling you out to the environmental extremists on the radical left.
we will also work around the clock to bring home Evan and Paul, Americans being unjustly detained by the Russians and others around the world. Israel has the right to go after Hamas. Hamas ended this conflict by releasing hostages, laying down arms, could end it by releasing the hostages, laying down arms, and surrendering those responsible for October 7th. But Israel has Israel has a added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards, under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza.
Back to Trump, he said he's done nothing for Israel compared to what I have done. It's only words he speaks, not the truth. He made Iran rich. This is why we have the problems in the Middle East. With me, Iran was broke. He is the reason that the Middle East is blowing up.
This war has taken a greater toll on innocent civilians than all previous wars in Gaza combined. More than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed, most of whom are not Hamas. Thousands and thousands of innocents, women and children, girls and boys, also orphaned. Nearly 2 million more Palestinians under bombardment or displacement. Homes destroyed, neighborhoods in rubble, cities in ruin, families without food, water, medicine. It's heartbreaking. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis and build toward an enduring, something more enduring. The United States has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian assistance to Gaza. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day.
That's interesting. But he said no boots on the ground.
And Israel must do its part. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. And they're announcing they're going to have a crossing in northern Gaza. To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority. As we look to the future, the only real solution to the situation is a two-state solution over time. And I say this as a lifelong supporter of Israel.
Yes, they are. They're
My
definitely in the
entire
Navy.
career, No one has a stronger
And our
record with
Marines.
Israel than I do. I challenge any of you here. I'm the only American president of Israel in wartime. But there is no other path that guarantees Israel's security and democracy. There is no other path that guarantees Palestinians can live in peace with peace and dignity. And there's no other path that guarantees peace between Israel and all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, with whom I'm talking. Creating stability in the Middle East also means containing the threat posed by Iran. That's why I built a coalition of more than a dozen countries to defend international shipping and freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. I've ordered strikes to degrade the Houthi capability and defend U.S. forces in the region. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and our military personnel. For years, I've heard many of my Republican and Democratic friends say that China
more strikes.
is on
I
the
heard that too.
rise and America's falling behind. They've got it backwards. I've been saying it for over 4 years, even when I wasn't president. America's rising. We have the best economy in the world. And since I've come to office, our GDP is up, our trade deficit with China is down to the lowest point in over a decade. And we're standing up against China's unfair economic practices. We're standing up for peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits. I've revitalized our partnership and alliance in the Pacific. India, Australia, Japan, South Korea, Pacific Islands. I've made sure that the most advanced American technologies can't be used in China, not allowing to trade them there. Frankly, for all this tough talk on China, it never occurred to my predecessor to do any of that. I want competition with China, not conflict. And we're in a stronger position to win the conflict of the 21st century against China than anyone else, for that matter, than any time as well. Here at home, I've signed over 400 bipartisan bills, but there's more to pass my unity agenda. Strengthen penalties on fentanyl trafficking. You don't want to do that, huh? Pass bipartisan privacy legislation to protect our children online. Harness the promise of AI to protect us from peril. Ban AI voice impersonations and more. And keep our truly sacred obligation.
At this point, Trump is just posting memes and nothing really dealing with this speech.
To train and equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home and when they don't. That's why the song Support and Help of Dennis and the VA, I signed the PACT Act. One of the most significant laws ever, helping millions of veterans exposed to toxins.
That was good, yeah. That was a win. The PACT Act.
100 different cancers.
I'll give him that.
Many of them don't come home, but we owe them and their families support. We owe it to ourselves to keep supporting our new health research agency called ARPA-H. And remind us that we can do big things, like end cancer as we know it, and we will.
All right, back to Trump. He says, today's radical Democrat Party wants to legalize drugs, shoplifting, and sexual mutilation of your children, but they want to outlaw your gas-powered Suburban Silverados and Ford F-150s.
Let me close with this. Yay. I know you don't want to hear any more, Lindsay, but I got to say a few more things. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever. I know the American story. Again and again, I've seen the contest between competing forces in the battle for the soul of our nation. Between those who want to pull America back to the past and those who want to move America into the future. My lifetime has taught me to embrace freedom and democracy, a future based on core values that have defined America: honesty, decency, dignity, equality, to respect everyone, to give everyone a fair shot, to give hate no safe harbor.
All right. Trump just said what happened to Nancy, which, yeah, I don't see her back there. I don't know what happened to her. But then he said, this is like a shouting match. Every line is being shouted. Someone actually made that comment in the beginning
See it differently.
in the chat.
The American story of resentment, revenge, and retribution. That's not me. I was born amid World War II when America stood for the freedom of the world. I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and Claymont, Delaware, among working-class people who built this country. I watched in horror as two of my heroes, like many of you did, Dr. King and Bobby Kennedy, were assassinated. And their legacies inspired me to pursue a career in service. I left the law firm and became a public defender because my city of Wilmington was the only city in America occupied by the National Guard after Dr. King was assassinated because of the riots. And I became a county councilman almost by accident. I got elected to the United States Senate when I had no intention of running at age 29. Then vice president, or our first black president. Now president to the first women vice president.
Jane said, I'm shocked at how well Biden is doing. He just won many votes. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a train wreck like a lot of people thought it was going to be. It just comes down to political differences, really.
In my career, I've been told I was too young. By the way, they didn't let me on the Senate elevators for votes sometimes. Not a joke. And I've been told I'm too old. Whether young or old, I've always known what endures. I've known our North Star.
Trump just said it's
The very
over.
idea of America is that we're all created equal and deserves to be treated equally throughout our lives. We've never fully lived up to that idea, but we've never walked away from it either. And I won't walk away from it now. I'm optimistic.
Back to Trump, he said, I bowed down to the Russian leader. He gave them everything, including Ukraine. I took away Nord Stream 2. He gave it to them. He was a puppet for Putin and Xi and virtually every other leader.
I really am. I'm optimistic, Nancy. My fellow
It took him over 40 minutes to get to immigration, then said nothing about it.
Americans, the issue facing our nation isn't how old we are, it's how old are our ideas. Hate, anger, revenge, retribution are the oldest of ideas. But you can't lead America with ancient ideas that only take us back. You lead America, the land of possibilities. You need a vision for the future and what can and should be done. Tonight you've heard mine. I see a future where defending democracy, you don't diminish it. I see a future where we restore the right to choose and protect our freedoms, not take them away.
Trump just said, whether the fake news media likes admitting it or not, there was a tremendous misrepresentation and lies in that speech, but the people of our country get it, and they know that November 5th will be the most important day in our nation's history.
I see a future where the middle class finally has a fair shot, and the wealthy have to pay their fair share in taxes. I see a future where we save the planet from the climate crisis and our country from gun violence. Above all, I see a future for all Americans. I see a country for all Americans. And I will always be president for all Americans because I believe in America. I believe in you, the American people.
I bet he had a cue if he wanted to
You're the
take
reason we've never been more
breaks
optimistic
that he
about
could
our
give
future than
them.
I am now. So let's build the future
So he could
together.
take
Let's
breaks if he
remember
needed
who
it.
We are. We are the United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity when we act together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, there it is. State of the Union. America, hell yeah.
President Biden wrapping up his speech. It was over an hour, Rhonda, but it was punchy, it was tight, and the president was making a clear
What'd you guys think?
message about what he believes his accomplishments have been over the first term and his ambitions
I'm seeing
for
a lot
hopefully
of
a second term.
Biden did good.
Repeatedly talking
Which,
about
yeah, I mean, he
my
didn't fall out or
predecessor,
anything like
his
people thought he was
predecessor,
gonna do.
Donald
So
Trump, not mentioning him by name, but
that's
trying to
good.
create a stark
I
difference
think it really
from
just comes
what he
down to
called old
political
ideas
differences.
of hate, anger,
I wonder if they
revenge,
decided to skip
retribution, and
the-
his
yeah,
ideas
okay.
of an optimistic
Yeah.
America.
I thought the
Rhonda,
heckling
he talked
might
about
derail
domestic
him, but
issues,
it
foreign
didn't.
issues,
And yeah,
said
heckling
the story
could
of the
derail
economy
anyone.
and its
I'll give
recovery
him
is the
that.
greatest
It's
comeback
annoying.
story never
Even
told.
I wouldn't even
What
consider
stands out
myself a
to you?
Democrat, and I don't like the
to me,
heckling.
it stood out
Like
to me
it's
because he leaned into
disrespectful
what right
to
now
someone
his
who is the
biggest
president.
vulnerability, and that's his age. You know, we're hearing that from voters.
But you know, it's politics. Emotions
about
fly.
his mental
It's gonna happen.
abilities. They're concerned about how long he's been around. They want a fresh face. They're not enthusiastic about Trump either. But right now, we saw Trump lean into that age issue. He talked about, yeah, I might be old, but old ideas are what will harm America. He said that, as you said, old
Outstanding,
ideas
no
are
major
going
mistakes,
back to take
right?
us back to hate and retribution.
And should that be the goal,
And we need to
that
move
he
forward. So it was
didn't
really
mess
a
up?
rousing end.
Like,
He hit all the notes that
is that
we
the standard we're
somewhat
gonna hold the
previewed
president
in the
to?
beginning of our program. He went through just a
All right.
laundry list of all the
Last
things that
tweet
he
from Trump
feels he accomplished,
says,
the infrastructure bill.
don't shake his hand. He's been coughing into it the entire night, which that is true. And it's pretty funny because he is going to go out there and shake some hands. Why so much sharper tonight? What do you mean? What do you mean sharper? Biden? Well, the conspiracy is that they're pumping him full of drugs, but, you know, who knows what, you know,
Bringing
that could be just people being crazy. Like they're giving him amphetamines or something. Oh my God, you guys. Let me see if I can bring this up. Biden is usually sleeping, or so it seems. I think he practiced on this one for sure. This is Trump's True Social. This is what he just posted.
We're going to buy American. We're going to buy America. So trade rules. Buy America has been the law since 1933. Also caps and won't even go into effect until 2025.
He's such a troll.
And by the way, that law was written and the benefit expires in 2025. New electric grids that are able to weather major storms and not prevent those forest fires.
What the hell is going on there? But yeah, you could see through a lot of it, he was just posting memes. I mean, he had comments too. I read the comments to you guys, and some of these memes as well. But there was a lot of just like memes. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. I think on this stream I got like 5 subs, so that's cool. And it was pretty successful. But I'm gonna get off here. It's dinner time to get some food. So thank you all for watching.